Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to the Hilltop Pillbox here in Abbotsford, British Columbia, Canada. And today, this is just going to be a short video about the why we play war games. And I will not make any grand claims that I have an exhaustive list here, but I have 10 reasons that I have mulled over for a while actually, and then recently I thought, yeah, I should put this up because I think it'll help us take a little stock for ourselves as to why we play these games. What is our goal? I do acting, and in every scene, each character has a goal of some kind. And once you've discovered that goal, that drives everything. It'll drive your pacing, your inflection, your tone, any variations in body movement and body language and speed of delivery. And so the same thing goes with playing war games. Now, I don't want to include games that aren't war games because and historically based war games because this list is specific to historical war games. So I'm not going to be talking about Monopoly, which can get some people quite upset.
One more time. No, I'm getting angry, Rebel. Will you leave the game?
But I'm going to be focusing more on games from historical board gaming, Axis and Allies, miniatures games, things like that. Why do we do these contests of historical importance, and why do we spend the money we do, the time we do, and the energy we do? So here we go, and these are in no particular order. I have kind of grouped them together a little bit, but it's not in order of value or import. It's strictly for flow.
Kiss my grits.
Now, with all these reasons, you may embrace one of them, two of them, or maybe all of them at various points in your life. You might embrace three or four of them at the same game. That's fine. I don't have any sort of pattern to which ones I embrace at different times. Sometimes it's the people I'm with. Sometimes it's the situation. Am I just sitting down for a quick 45-minute pocket battle or something, or am I going to sit down for a weekend? Am I at a tournament where I'll be meeting different people, or am I playing my son? Right? There are obviously a myriad of variations, and the different situations will provoke a different reason. So, with all due humility, I present to you these 10 reasons why I believe people will play war games, and these might be specific to myself. Maybe you read these or you hear these and you'll say, no, not me. I do it for this reason. And if you do, please put that in the comments below because that'll just help me grow my knowledge about the community. So without any further ado, the first thing we're going to say is, why do you play? Because you like to play. As the bard said, the play is the thing. And so when you put out any game, whether it's a war game or Scattergories or Pictionary or whatever, it's just the challenge, just the entire. There's the competition, but there's also the camaraderie. There's the atmosphere. There's the memories you're building, all that sort of stuff. But just the play itself gives you the opportunity to do things that you wouldn't have. Opportunities that we certainly don't have even playing online. You load up AAA or Tabletop Simulator or something to play, and it's just not the same thing as playing the game in person. But even doing those, even playing electronically, some of these reasons will come in. But that's just the first one, just because it's to play, just to play. All right, number 2, to win. All right, some people, when you sit down to play, your goal is to win. I am going to win, and that is my goal, and everything I do will steer me towards that end. And all friendships go to the side, all politeness goes to the side, and I am going to win, 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 win. I used to be like that, a little bit more in my youth. I'm quite a bit more temperate now. But in my youth, yeah, that was my viewpoint. Was why else would you play? You play to win, right? It's that competition, it's that drive, and I've lost that as time has gone on, mainly because I don't win that much as I go along, and I've learned to just realize that a loss is not a bad thing. It's not the end of the world. The sun rises. I still have bills to pay. You know, the, life goes on, right? And 10 minutes after a game is done, you know, if you start another one, if you're at a tournament or something, or, you know, maybe you even lose the final game at a big invitational tournament, 10 minutes later, nobody cares. Everybody's going to be talking about, oh, you remember that time in that first game where this happened? Or you remember that invasion? You remember that sea lion? You remember whatever, right? Whatever the game happens to be. And those are the things you talk about, right? I, and I don't see a lot of people strutting when they win. Um, but that could be what drove them there. But they know well enough not to brag and not to feast, have a big feast over the corpses of their fallen enemies, right? Right? They're just going to graciously win, right? And that's a whole different video, a whole different chat. Is just talking about, you know, how do you win, how do you lose? But I'm not going to get into that here. All right, to win. The third reason is to meet people, you know, make friends, right? To you know, meet people that maybe you've heard of or maybe even have had chats with. Right now, you know, I just finished a game with Panzer King and Fortress Jinx, and I've never met either of them, but I feel I can call them both friends, and here we are where we've never even met, right? So hey, what a time to be alive, right? We have this technology that we can reach out and absolutely you know, get to know people. You can even have, you know, video chats with people and whatnot. You can even see what they look like and all the rest. It's not that mysteriousness of, you know, days gone by. I mean, if you had a pen pal, that was very exciting when your pen pal sent a photo, right? For you youngins, you know, you know, have a pen pal in a foreign country, and you'd write letters to each other and include photos of yourself, your family, your pets, the area you lived in, and you got to know about somebody firsthand. It was all primary knowledge. Well, we can do that now at our fingertips on our phone, right? So that the ability to do it is so easy now that sometimes we don't realize what we're doing. We're actually getting to know somebody without actually meeting somebody in the flesh. So maybe that's why you do it, just to grow your circle of friends, and yeah, there you go. Number four is similar to that. Is to grow the community, right? So if you care about war games, right, for whatever reason, whatever one of these 10 reasons or a multitude of these reasons that you agree with, I think one thing we can all agree is that we want the community to grow. We want it to be healthy. We want it to be full of people who speak well of each other and speak well of the game and speak well of the competition and all the rest, right? This is what we want because we know that's who we want to hang around, right? And so we want to grow the community. And the best way to grow a community about gaming is to play the games, right? So maybe that's your goal. Maybe you're going to be that person behind the scenes who's putting things together so people can meet, grow the community, get people excited. Okay. Number five, maybe you're doing it to increase your knowledge of history. I know that I have learned a lot just by playing these games. My hat is off to Panzer King, as when we played 36, he'd be talking about different events, different units. I think if you watched it, you know, you saw those painted units, especially the planes that he'd bring in, talking about these very rarely used but nevertheless important aircraft or ships or tanks or what have you that he brought in and painted up very nicely and then showcased them on his channel. And this is not a gift I have. I don't have a gift at all. But I can certainly learn about history. I'm a history teacher. I wrote a book on history, of course, so I love history. History is fantastic, and I teach many blocks of history in high school. I just got my teaching load for next year, and I got 6 blocks of history out of 7. Um, the last one is I do broadcasting and film and TV acting, so I help kids with that. But historically, I mean, that's where it's at for me, and so I like to increase my knowledge of history. And you know what? When I deliver it in my classes, I know the kids really connect with it. The ones who come in and they're all, oh, history sucks. Why do we have to learn about this? And then 4 or 5 days later, I've got them yelling at each other about whether or not Hitler did a good thing by asking for the Enabling Act to be passed. Was that a good idea or a bad idea, right? And it's fun, you know, it's fun for me. And they increase their knowledge of history through that. I increase mine, you know, I do reading and whatnot, but some of you might just play the game and you're gonna look at a board and say, I've never heard of that territory. Leon Castile, what's that all about, right? I remember when I played my first war game ever, which was Risk on the classic board, right? And there were things there that they had names on, and I had no idea what these things are. Kamchatka. What the heck is Kamchatka, right? And then Irkutsk, right? And so you go look these things up in an encyclopedia. For those youngins out there, it's a very large, heavy book that the library wouldn't let you take home. You had to read it in the library. But you would read, you'd look up these things and you'd learn about different areas around the world thanks to a war game, right? So maybe to increase your knowledge of history is your thing. So the sixth reason, perhaps you want to change history. Perhaps you want to be the person who makes the past go away and you supplant it with your own vision of a utopian society, which I was fortunate enough to do kind of by accident in that latest YouTube game, the 1936 game, where I won and I didn't even know I had won. And it was the Comintern, right? So the communists won the war, Axis were second, and the Allies were last. And aren't we glad that that didn't happen, right? Aren't we so glad, right? But you know, I was able to change history, and that's the beautiful part of it. And I like the fact that many war games allow you to do that. They allow you to tweak what happened, and you can play a little bit of what if. I'm a big Harry Turtledove fan. If you haven't read his books, highly recommend them. And you know, you get into that what if, right? That you know, a single shot could have changed the history of the world. I believe there was a marksman who had George Washington in his sights early in the American Revolutionary War, the War for Independence, and he didn't squeeze the trigger. I've heard different reasons why. Some have said because you shouldn't be shooting officers, you can't target officers. Others said his gun misfired. Other people say it's complete nonsense, it never would have happened. But you know, hey, let's go historically say somebody did. Or Washington, you know, he had I think he had 3 horses shot out from under him in the French and Indian War at one battle when Braddock was going to Fort Duquesne, and they got ambushed by the Canadiens and the natives and some French troops. This massive British column got wiped out, and Washington had, I think, 3 or 4 horses shot out from under him. So, you know, that bullet goes up a few inches higher, and that's it, right? The American Revolution is going to have a different leader. So, you know, change history. Have some fun with it. And other people, there's a kind of a 6B, it's to cement history in place. It's to say, see, told you, it had to happen that way. For my part, I don't really see the point in that, because we know history. Right? Of course, it's getting a little bit of revisionist history going on these days, but you know, you dig deeply enough, you can find out as much truth as possible about what happened in the past, and so I don't need to see that repeated. It's kind of like people ask me if I watch reality TV and you know, like Big Brother and other stuff like that, and I'm like, why? You know, watching people treat each other poorly, yell at each other. You know, why would I do that? I see that in real life. Not in my house, thank goodness. We have a nice home, but you know, I hear my neighbors, and I see some people on the streets yelling at each other. I said, why would I want to do that? So why would I want to play a historical board game and then follow chapter and verse what happened in history? Not a lot of fun for me. But if you like to do that, hey, more power to you. The seventh reason is that, dang it, this costs me a lot of time, money, and energy, and it's not going to waste. Yeah, you're gonna squeeze every penny out of this, right? And I'm as guilty as anyone when it comes to having board games that I've got sitting on my shelf still in shrink. You've probably seen it when I do my videos. You'll see a couple of them are still pretty shiny, and they're not even difficult. I know how to play them, but you go play them at a tournament or you play them on a games weekend. We have the Fraser Valley Tabletop Day, which was started by a fellow here in Abbotsford region, and up until last year, we get together once a year and we play games. They went to a local church here and rented out the gym and some other rooms, and we'd have a couple hundred people show up, and there are people who are playtesting games and they're showcasing Kickstarter games, and it was very, very successful. They probably gave out about $3,000 worth of free gifts and prizes and gift certificates and all the rest. It was a great time, fantastic time. And so you go there, you're in a great mood, and you play games, and then I got to go get that game. So you head on over to your friendly local game store, and you buy the game, and you bring it home, put it on your shelf, saying, I've got to play that with my game group when it comes around next time. And everybody comes in, we want to play this game again. Oh, okay. So you play it, and then after a while, that game just sits there all lonely. But I regret nothing. All right. So yeah, we don't want to waste the resources that we've spent on these games. And aside to that, a lot of people say, wow, you spent that much on a map and on pieces and on kind of tricking out your game. That's crazy. Now, these people I'm speaking with who are telling me this will spend $25,000 on a car from the 70s and spend another $35,000 getting it ready to drive only when it's sunny. So I have nothing against people who restore cars. I have total respect because I love old cars. I just don't have that sort of driver skill, and I certainly don't have that kind of scratch to put towards that. And other people, they have hobbies like golfing. Maybe they want to go hunting or fishing, right? And none of these things are cheap, and you have to pay every single year. You have to keep paying, keep paying, keep paying. Realistically, you could buy a board game, you could spend $500 tricking it all out, and it looks beautiful, and you could stop, and you're good to go, and you will now have hundreds and hundreds of hours of play. So maybe that drives you. Maybe that you've spent time, money, and energy, and dang it, you're going to play it. Number 8, I say this a little tongue-in-cheek, sometimes we do it to avoid other responsibilities. I know that, if I've got a stack of marking to do, and I'll get an invitation, hey, you want to come, play a game of G40 today, or hey, you want to just play some, Memoir 44 or something. It could be anything, any sort of a historical board game, war game. And that marking has to wait till 2 in the morning, and that's on me. But that's an easy trade. That's easy. That's not I don't even think twice. I'm like, yep, you bet, and I'll do that. As a happily married man of next month will be 24 years in a row. I do not schedule games, though, to avoid responsibilities that I've promised my wife, like, if there's yard work to be done, or we're going to do housework, we're going to do spring cleaning or something like that. I certainly don't do that. So a word to the wise, if you're going to use wargaming as a reason, I'll call it an excuse to avoid other responsibilities. Just kind of count the cost before you do that, because you might have a real live war game you don't really want the dice to go cold on. Number 9, to increase your problem-solving ability. Right? Maybe you have you have an interest in being able to think yourself out of a jam. Maybe you like to think on your feet. Maybe you like to have that kind of pressure cooker on your decision making, and you like to see what you can do, and you want to increase that ability. It's a skill, folks. A lot of people call it a gift, and I say no, that is a skill that people have worked on. And I was kind of bragging to my kids about how teachers have, in throughout the 20th century, teachers have been very good at being military leaders. I'm not talking about generals or anything, but just being officers and even non-coms. If you actually look through, you'll see that a number of effective leaders were in fact teachers, because all we do every moment of every day is solve problems, make decisions, make a call, deal with it, good or bad, and then learn from it so you don't repeat it, right? So we learn on the go pretty quickly, and we retain that knowledge. Now, so do other people. I mean, there are people who are, mechanics. There are people who are lawyers. There are people who are doctors. There are people who are landscapers, whatever. You also learn on the go. I think the thing that teachers have over a lot of those things is that instead of working with things, instead of working with objects, we're working with people, constantly working with people and problem solving for people and helping people get through their difficult situations. And so we end up developing a skill set that's fairly unique. You could, say maybe counselors and psychologists and whatnot have the same thing, and I would agree with that. But I think with being a teacher, you're not only helping people, deal with situations that maybe are throwing them for a loop. You're dealing with children. You're dealing with children. So I can't just describe it the way that I would do it, because to a 12-year-old or a 15-year-old, that might not work too well. That they might not connect with it. So I have to talk on their level. So I have to learn as much as I can about them and then approach them where they're at. And I'll tell you, sometimes we fail, and sometimes we really hit it out of the park, right? But we remember both. We remember the ups and downs, and we try to employ more of the ups, as it were, as time goes on. And I mean, there's a couple of things that we can talk about as far as teachers, professors go. If you've seen, if you know the story about Joshua Chamberlain, he was a colonel of the, I want to say it was the 20th Maine, but a regiment in the American Civil War, and actually fought at Little Round Top on day 2 of the Battle for Gettysburg. And talk about problem solving constantly, and he eventually orders a bayonet charge because they're out of ammunition, right? So instead of leaving, instead of trying to just go hand to hand and wait for the rebels to show up, they charge them, right, and win the day. Spoiler. And he was a professor. He taught rhetoric, right? He's not even a military strategist or anything. He taught rhetoric. And he was able to get his commission in the army and go fight for what he knew was right. And then Saving Private Ryan, right? I'm sure you've all seen. And, Captain Miller. Everybody wanted to figure out what Captain Miller of the Rangers, right? So this guy's a U.S. Ranger, and he's a very effective leader. And what does he do? He teaches middle school. He teaches grammar and composition to 12-year-olds, 10-year-olds, right? It's like, whoa, like that's pretty insane, right? You go from writing on a chalkboard one day trying to teach kids what verbs and nouns in a proper sentence looks like to killing Nazis. So that's a little plug for teachers. I know some of you might not hold teachers in the highest of respects, because I know some teachers have really not looked good. But believe me when I say we do problem solve like crazy, and we always try to get it right, and we don't always get it right. But we do try to learn from it. So to increase your problem solving ability could be a reason for you. And then the last one I have here, and again, I know there's more. Please put your thoughts in the comments below. But the last one would be to showcase your problem solving ability. So a lot of people have the ability to take on a very challenging role and just excel, absolutely excel. And so I have friends that when I play war games, they'll say, "Oh, is this heavily favored to this side or this side?" And I'll say, "Well, typically this side wins." They'll say, "Okay, give me the other guys. I'm going to show you that I can do this. I'm going to show you I can win." And they do, right? They do. They have an incredible sense of of what is going on. They have great tactics, strategy, and whatever it needs, right? And a little bit of luck every now and again, but fortune favors the prepared, and fortune favors the bold, and all the rest. Um, and it's maybe that's why you play. Maybe you're one of those people who just loves the challenge, and you like to showcase it. And even if you lose, nobody's going to go a loser, because that side typically does lose. And maybe you made it closer than anybody's seen it before. So I think those, that's a noble reason. If you want to just showcase your problem solving ability that you have developed over the years. But regardless of your reasoning, any of these 10 reasons or any others that you may personally have, there's one undeniable truth. And this quote is attributed to Plato, but I did some digging, because I always raise an eyebrow when somebody said, "And Socrates said this." I'm like, really? Let's find out, because that's pretty good English. You know what I mean, though. And no, there's nothing that says Plato actually said this, but it's attributed to him, so who cares? He's an old dead Greek guy, so here we go. And he essentially says, "I can learn more about a person in an hour of play than in a year of conversation." And how true is that? I know that I have shown people my darker side when I was younger. Now I don't really care. But when I was younger, people saw a side of me that wasn't out there, and we could have tragedy happening. We could have horrible things going on. I mean, I worked on a medical crew in Alberta for a number of years, just as a volunteer medical person, and we'd go around and we'd help people who hurt themselves, like typically at like outdoor concerts, Stage 13, Big Valley Jamboree, where you have tens of thousands of people, and maybe people don't drink enough water, or they don't wear a hat, or somebody trips and falls and breaks something, or what have you. When we do these different events, and I mean, I saw some pretty horrific stuff, and some people that didn't make it. They just drink and drug themselves into death, right? And I'm sitting there watching this, and I was able to keep my cool, keep my composure, and I could go through the checklist no problem. Didn't need it in front of me, and I made sure we followed all the protocols, and everything was followed, and the ambulance would show up, and I'd ride along, and all the rest. And it's great for me. I really enjoyed it, but I was able to keep very calm and detached, as it were. And then maybe a week later, I'd be playing a game of Risk with somebody. I'd roll nothing but ones and twos for about a 10-minute stretch. And they'd learn something about me, right? They'd learn that I cannot handle bad luck, right? Again, nowadays it's like, ugh. And you'll hear me on my videos when I have bad rolls. I'll tell you about it. But I never take it out in such a way that, I hope anyway, that anybody says, "That's it, I'm not playing with this guy anymore." Hopefully they get a kind of a kick out of my come on, right? Hopefully they do, and maybe they're being polite and saying, too much. But it's amazing how play brings out truth, and I'm going to leave you with that. Play brings out truth about a person's character. Now I say I'll leave you with that. There's one more note. Do a little plug for my buddy Mark. He wrote a book on how to win at Catan, and it's actually one of the top selling books, game strategy books in the English language right now. And his name's Mark Oxer, and I proofread the book for him, and I don't know if he ever made this particular change. But I don't play Catan anymore. I do have a few copies of it, and every now and again somebody will say, "Hey, let's play," but I haven't played Catan, in probably a year and a half, 2 years. And if you don't know what it is, it's a resource management game. heavily dependent on dice rolling, and you want to play the odds, but dice and odds, right? They don't always come up. But he was talking about how, and this alludes to the Plato quote about learning about man in an hour of play, is that when he plays, his thing is, my number two reason is to win. Why else would you play a game? You're just going to play to win. And so he wrote in there, and he wrote a story about one time he went with his, I believe it was his fiancée, girlfriend, to another couple's house, and they played a game of Catan. And long story short, there was quite the eruption of emotion, because she was playing to have fun, but he was playing to win, and then she ends up making a deal that helps somebody else win. And the ride home was not good. I think that's the story. Anyway, there was something that went on that was quite bad. And he tried to explain that it's important that when you go to play this game, that you play to win. That'll make it the best game. Well, unfortunately, humanity's really messy. If you had a bunch of computers playing, absolutely, right? But there are so many nuances. There are so many subtleties to the human condition. And so I wrote him back, and I said, this is a great book. I like what you've done with it. I said, but that part where you talk about it's more important to win than to have a nice ride home, I said you might want to rethink that, because I know a lot of people just won't buy the book at that point, right? If they hear about that, they just won't buy the book. I think he may have taken it out, but it's that idea that when people find out that you're about the win and nothing else, not enjoying their company, not building friendships, not building relationships, but just to win that bloody game. Like I say, 10 minutes after the game is done, do you want to have people laughing and chuckling about what would happen, or do you want it to be an awkward silence and you never get invited back? So that's my take on it. Again, I absolutely do not profess to have any sort of quality or qualifying degree in human nature or anything. It's just, these are my observations, and this is how I approach gaming, and I approach wargaming specifically. And for some of you, you might be wondering, well, what is the reason that you play? The reasons that you play. Okay, so for me, definitely the play is the thing. Just being around people and playing. That's it. And specifically for the war games, I want to grow the community. I want to learn about history. And you know what? I like to change history. Everything else might enter into it a little bit. But for the most part, for me, to play, and if it's a historical board game, I want to learn about that period of history, and let's see if we can't change it. Right? Let's see if we can't, manipulate the little plastic pieces on the board in such a way that, the losers of history, the historical losers, didn't do it. And maybe I can show them, hey, I'm better than Rommel, right? And, hang that hat on the wall for a while. But thanks so much for watching, folks, and listening to me just rant on here for half an hour plus. And I hope you found it informative a little bit, and maybe challenging, and maybe helps you do a little bit of introspective soul searching, as it were, to see why you do. And maybe you'll come up with a reason that I haven't listed here in my 10 reasons. So whatever the case is, just want to thank you all for being a part of the community, and that you just continue to, as we always say here, hug your loved ones. I lost an aunt just a week ago, and I couldn't go to the funeral because of COVID. And she was an amazing woman, and that's it. She's gone, and I can't ever tell her again, thank you for being so amazing. I can't tell her that. And So my encouraging thing to you is to take that opportunity. If the special people in your life, just pick up the phone, call them. It's so easy, so easy. You know, just call somebody and tell them that hey, you're glad that you know them. You're happy that you're friends. So you take care of folks, and may those dice be with you.